All right, we're gonna do one of the, we're nearing the end here, so one of the last summer 2022 3D print, or I think I called it additive fabrication, didn't I? But 3D printing talks. We've got the Bibo printer back here in the background today. Not anything uh, particularly unique about it. It's just the one that I have handy that is a dual extruder, but not IDEX. So last week was it that we talked about the JG Maker that was an IDEX independent extruder, dual extruder printer. This one's a little bit different. It is a dual extruder, but the two extruders are both, they're right here, and they're mounted on the same carriage. So it can't do the same things where it can copy. Well, it can copy, but obviously the extruders are really close together, so the parts have to be really small for it to make a copy of them, so that they don't overlap. Whereas the IDEX could print much larger copies of two objects at the same time, or it could mirror. This one can't mirror because the extruders are locked together. There are a couple of printers like this around. The Flash Forge, what's it called? Creator Pro Dual Extruder. So that one is in this same, actually it looks very similar, different color, but and different name, but very similar looking printer. Um, I think it has a rectangular bed where this one has a square bed. This bed's not huge. Let's see. Um, eight, 8.25 inches cubed. That's how many millimeters? 210 millimeters, so a little smaller than your Ender 3 at, Ender 3 is around 225 or whatever, so a little bit smaller bed. I've got a glass surface on it. I believe that came with it. I believe the glass surface came with it. It is heated bed, and it does have this little door that comes down, but there's a big glare on it, so I don't have it down right now. So it can kind of be enclosed. You can't really tell, but there is, put this down, there is a top that comes with acrylic top that comes with it. So it can kind of be an enclosed printer. It's not sealed up or anything, but it kind of be enclosed. At least keeps drafts away from it. So that part is good. The other reason it has this lid is that this particular one comes with a laser module that you can mount here. I've never actually done that, but it does come with a little laser. I don't remember, maybe a 10 watt or something. Maybe it's a 40 watt. No, I don't think it's 40 watt. It's a really small laser unit that you can attach to it so that it could do a little bit of engraving and maybe cutting of paper or something like that. Like I said, I haven't actually ever attached it to bother with it. But it does have that as a part that comes with it. I did print, let's go down a little bit lower. Did print a couple of things here. Well, this is the one from last time. I finally found some magnets. It does, well, let's see if I can get it to do. Wait, move this other way. Magnets will stick to it. It's extremely weak. So there is enough iron in this print to attract a magnet, but it has to be a really light magnet to actually stick to it. And then there's not a whole lot of force, but it's not going to stick to other prints. So here's that. It will stick to it. So they are correct. I still haven't tried out the patina. Can you rust this stuff? Maybe I'll spray some water on it and see how it rusts. But it does actually have enough iron in it to let little magnets stick to it if that was of value to you. It's not magnetic, so it's not like it can be a magnet itself, but at least it's ferromagnetic. Okay. Printed this guy. This is that TPU from a long time ago. What it looks like when it prints. Maybe if I turn that light off, it'll not be quite so shiny. And it's still pretty shiny, isn't it? It's blasting out the colors on it. But it looks sort of like a older glass, maybe. I'm not sure how much of that. I did not dry this one, so I'm not sure how much of this is bubbles in the print versus how it's supposed to look. But it's TPU, flexible. I like these. If you need something that's going to be malleable, need to be flexible. It's a very flexible. Again, this is just a vase mode print, and it looks pretty cool. The bubble, I guess they're bubbles in it. I don't know if it's bubbles or just little irregularities in the texture, but they really hide the layer lines in it, so it's uh, pretty nice one. That's just a translucent green TPU. I don't remember even who made it. I don't have the bag here. This one is just a regular print, except that I have turned on, this is PLA, I've turned on the fuzzy skin option to print this one. I'll show you that. It's in Cura. At least that's the there's a different similar option in Idea Maker, but it's not fuzzy skin. It actually applies a bump map, so it can put any texture on it. Cura's fuzzy skin is a procedural, basically makes changes in the surface of your print. So this is a mild version of the fuzzy skin. I wish I could get it to focus better on it, but it's kind of not wanting to. But you can kind of see how it's instead of a nice smooth surface like this, you get a bumpy surface, and you can control the bumpiness. So let's go to Cura and see how we might do that. Now it doesn't work in base mode though. So I did have to basically create the same thing as base mode, one wall, no top, that kind of stuff, no infill, and slice it that way. So let's try to figure out which one I want to, not that, that one. There we go. There's Cura. I guess we need a part in here. Let's see. We got some pictures. We got skull tower. I wonder what that is. I assume it's a tower that has skulls on it. Oh yeah, this is for dark tower. A little marker for it. This will be interesting to be fuzzy skin. So here's our part. And all you do is in your search settings, it's not one that's easy to find, so I usually just type fuzzy and you click fuzzy. It's still in the experimental category over here. You turn it on with just clicking that, and you get a couple of little options here. Do you want it only on the outside, or do you want it on inner surfaces? So probably you only want it on the outside, but that's up to you. And then you've got these three parameters that control how fuzzy it's going to be. So I'm going to leave them at the default and slice that. Hopefully this doesn't take terribly long to slice. It does take longer to print because of all the extra movements that will be in the fuzzy part. Now we need to preview it to see what it's going to look like. So there you can kind of get an idea of the erratic nature of what this outer surface is going to look like. Now, can you tell what it's actually going to look like? I don't know. Actually, some of these, looks like for whatever reason, it didn't apply any fuzzy skin to this little band right here. For some reason, it must not think those are outer surfaces. Let's try unchecking that and see if that fixes the issue with it not fuzzying those layers. I'm not sure. I just randomly picked this model here, so I haven't tried it before. Yeah, so for whatever reason, it didn't think those were outer layers, but now they're fuzzy. So, or there's probably also fuzzies on the inside. Looks like it did put some support in there. So yeah, you can kind of see down in there, it's going to be fuzzy on the inner, although that probably counted as the outer surface before anyway. So you can create. Let's get rid of this one, and let's just put a. Oh yeah, I forgot that for whatever reason, the new update to Cura broke my extension for the calibration tools, calibration shapes. I'm going to reinstall it, which will, I assume, make me restart Cura. So I don't know why that happened, but it took away my calibration shapes. for some reason. Not sure. And now, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna have to restart Cura though for it to show up. Um, well, all I was gonna do is I was just gonna modify some of those parameters, like the density of it and the amount of how far do they stick out. You can actually make them go really far out where they kind of droop, like vines or something. So you can do some interesting things without having to model it, because it's all just a procedural thing that it takes the G code and edits it to not land on the surface it should land on. It comes beyond it a little bit. So you can make textures on things, or you can get really extreme with it and make all sorts of different stuff. So that's the fuzzy skin. Let's go back to the model. So you get stuff like that. It takes slightly longer to print, just because your extruder has to make more movements instead of just nice straight lines. So, but it's not a extremely long extra time. I think these normally take 56-ish minutes, and this one took right at an hour to print. So it added 4 minutes or so to the print time. Not a lot. This, like I said, it won't work in vase mode though, because vase mode only has the one line, and it won't pick up anything to create fuzzy on. So I did have to take this same model, it's the exact same size and everything. So I took the same model, but printed it with zero infill, zero top layers, and one wall, and then it would do the fuzzy skin on it. The difference is that the base mode prints actually print in a helix. So it's kind of a continuous spiral, whereas this one has to do layer by layer. So they are actually layers stacked on top of one another instead of a helix. Not You can't even tell the difference. Oh well, you can tell. Let's see. Here it put the seam. Yeah, you can see it right there. So it put the seam. I don't know why it didn't hit it on that line, but it put it over here. And so this one does have a seam when you're not in base mode. So that's the only thing that you can tell it's the difference, other than the slightly longer time, which could be the fuzzy skin, or it could be that it's not in base mode. So there's that. Let's look at the Bibo printer over here. Where do we get the Bibo? There he is. So it's got a little touchscreen, a tiny, tiny touchscreen. So let's see if I can get it to come on. Sometimes this one does not like to turn on, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah, so for whatever reason, it has a finicky process for getting it to come on. So you wiggle I don't know if there's almost a short or what it is. Doesn't make good connection, something. You unplug it, plug it back in, and it'll usually come on. This one's pretty much stock, except I did go in and update the icons on here because the icons that came with it are not that attractive. And I had to replace a limit switch in the back, way back there. The old one had just gone out. That is something that can happen over time on any printer. I wish it would stop focusing. I wonder if I can make it not change the focus. Let's see if I can do that over here. Make it a, let's see, that would be this guy. Can I make it not autofocus? Doesn't look like it. Well, we'll just have to deal with it kind of going in and out. I don't think I have a way to make it not try to autofocus on this thing. It's got two, I believe, yeah, I have brass nozzles in there right now. I don't believe they are all metal. I think they are, um, do have a Teflon tube inside there. I can see a bit of Teflon tubing sticking out the top of the nozzle, and I've never bothered to look to see how far down in there it goes. But I haven't changed the nozzles on it or anything like that. They're just kind of standard. They have 0.4 millimeters in there right now, which I suppose if I ever do print with this one any amount of time, that I will switch those over to the 0.6 also. Um, It has two little spool rack holders on the back. You can kind of see the ends of them here. I don't actually use those that much though. I usually go in and um, use something like this. So I don't think I've ever showed these before, but these are, you know, any spool will fit on them. Will fit on them like so, and you can then put the spool wherever you want. They're pretty low friction once you get them lined up straight. Kind of got them off here. I usually use these for it. I have it on a shelf, and then actually, can you see the shelf right there? And I usually keep the spools down on one of the lower shelves. Um, and so you need two of them to feed it. And I usually like those instead of mounting it on the printer itself. I use these also with the Ender 3 off to the side so that the filament comes in kind of from the side direction instead of coming in from the top. Usually it's what I do. I do have these versions also. They're little trays that these are from Prusa. They do the same thing, you know. So I use those a good bit. You can get them off of Amazon. You can get these anyway off of Amazon. I'm not sure if you can get these. These came with the Prusa's multi-material product, so I don't know if they sell them independently or not. But you can get these, or you can just print them. The first ones I had of these, I just printed and used. I think I used rollerblade bearings for the, or maybe skateboard bearings for the wheels on it. And so they're actually pretty straightforward to just print your own if you want to. So anyway, put those in there. So the idea with this printer is that this was, again, it's building on some of the older style printers where you wanted to have two materials, one of them being a support material. I wonder if I have, oh, here we go. Yes. So this is most of what you use these days as support material for this kind of printing. This is PVA, so you can print, PVA like Elmer's glue. You can print with it kind of translucent. You can see it a little bit there. It kind of looks like a really thin glue stick, which is basically what it is. And the good thing about it is that it will print at roughly the same temperature as PLA, so it's not going to be necessarily any hotter or colder than PLA. It prints from, this says, what does it say? 190 to 220, so that's a good range for also printing PLA. On these printers, you can have both nozzles at completely different temperatures, though, and that's okay. But it will print, and then you dissolve it away in water over a couple of hours. So that's the idea for a lot of these, why you would have two nozzles. One to print the support material, one to print the actual model material. And you can do two colors or two different materials if you wanted to. Usually the reason I would do it anyway is to have a support material and a model material. Let's see, what else would you might want to know about this thing? I don't, as far as like, should you buy one of these? I don't know that you really should buy this one. I think if I were looking in the market for a, cheaper, more affordable, dual extruder, not IDEX printer, I'd probably go with the Flash Forge. It has a little bit larger community, a little bit larger brand than the Bibo. There's nothing really wrong with this one, but it's a kind of obscure brand, and you can get parts for it. Most of the parts are kind of standard anyway, and there is a decent size support group. Most of these printers support groups are on Facebook, and there's a decent group there of that can usually respond to help. But I think I would still go with the Flash Forge. I'm looking at the prices right now, and it looks like prices for the Bibo are still in the $500 range. You're also getting this little laser unit on there that if that's something you're interested in, then okay, that might add some value to it. But looks like it's somewhere in that range, 500 to some of these are even $600. Whereas the Flash Forge does the same thing, a little bit different shaped bed. It's more rectangular, so it's longer than it is deep. Probably $400 in for that Flash Forge dual extruder printer. No laser module on it as far as I know, but like I say, that's not even something I've ever connected to this one. So I think I would probably go with the Flash Forge over this one. Just it's a little bit cheaper, a little bit larger community, a little bit larger brand. If I were trying to get a dual extruder, I kind of am beginning to like, now that we've got the 0.6 nozzles in the JG Maker Artist D, it's actually doing pretty well, and I kind of think I would probably go over that because you do get a little bit more functionality with the independent dual extruders than you do with the dual extruder setup like this where they're mounted on the same carriage. Probably tomorrow, I think, we'll look at, okay, you don't want dual extruders at all, but you want multi-material. We'll look at least one way to do that. Over here, I've got the version 2 of the palette mosaic, which is one of the splicing machines where you take multiple inputs of filament and splice them together into a chain of filament that you feed into your single nozzle printer. So we'll look at that probably tomorrow. At least look at it. I don't know that we'll do much with it. We'll look at how it works. Also as an update, the eSun is still holding strong on the vacuum packing. This was packed on last Friday, I believe, Thursday or Friday. So it's been close to getting close to a week of it not having lost its vacuum. So that's good. Let's see. I was also going to look at this other slicer. So we've looked at a little bit of Idea Maker when we did the JG Maker. We've mostly looked at Cura. I think we might have fired up Prusa a time or two. But there's another one out there that I want you to see, but I'm not at all going to recommend that you use it unless you just have it. But this one's Simplify3D. The why I would not say to get it is that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, somewhere in that, it was like the premier slicer that did stuff the other slicers just didn't at all have the capability to do. The free slicers. This one's paid, so I think you can still buy it. Let's see. I assume, yeah, I think you can still buy it on Simplify3D.com. It's Simplify with a Y though, FY, SIMPLIFY 3D, the number 3. So you can still buy this software, but they have not updated it in, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. It's been a long time. They've continually said that there's a version 5 coming. It's on version 4.1 right now, but it's been there for, I wonder if I can find a date on it over here. No, they didn't. They're smart enough not to put the last time they updated it on their page here. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but it's been way too long. And what's happened is that your free slicers, Prusa and Cura in particular, Super Slicer, even Idea Maker have come in and can do pretty much everything that this slicer can do. So at one time, this was the thing you had to have if you wanted to do custom type slicing. But this is what it looks like. I've got some, I don't know, some part I was printing here. At one point, it's just a kind of rectangular tube. It does have different mouse controls on how to move around in the window, so I keep undoing what I just did. So the idea is that you drop your parts in here. They'll show up. I have to move my picture. Well, Oops. Didn't want to move that one. Want to move this one. Can't move it. Oh, I have it locked. That's why I can't move it. There we go. So they'll show up in this window up here with all the different parts that you have loaded on the print bed. I don't even know what printer this is set up for. It's a pretty big one. Oh no, this is probably for the Bibo. It's just zoomed in because this was a really tiny part. So I think this is the Bibo's print volume. So you load in all your parts you want to print. You give them a, now I have to move myself back up there again. You give them a process. So I want to add a process, and you get a pop-up like this. Let's see if we can just make it fit. Where I've got the Bibo 2. This is technically the Bibo 2 that we've been looking at. I don't even know what a Bibo 1 is. I think it's probably the same machine with maybe some different hardware. This is the laser, the touch, because it does have a touch screen on it, although it's super tiny. So you pick your basic profile. They do have an assortment of profiles out there that you can load in for your printer. Usually you have to build your own, or at least you have to modify it. And you have your left and right extruder. It looks similar in style to maybe what what Prusa does, where it has tabs for the different processes. They're just a whole bunch of tabs. This is actually a lot like what the Idea Maker slicer looks like, where you've got all these tabs of different pieces of information that you can go and change. But you say you want to use the left extruder, and you say these are still 0.4 millimeter nozzles. It's got an extrusion multiplier of 0.9. I don't remember if I did that or if that's on there. So what that is, that's basically the flow rate. Flow rate or extrusion multiplier or uses the same number. I don't remember if I ever went and tested that or if I was actually just trying to under extrude a little bit. I'm not sure why 0.9 instead of 1 in that one. I'd have to go and calibrate this machine to see why I have a 0.9 in there. It's got your regular retraction. It does have a coast. We haven't talked about coasting that much. What this is, now this is a direct drive printer, the Bibo is, so it doesn't need to do a lot of coasting. But the idea on something like the Ender 3, where you've got the Bowden tube, is you've got pressure built up in the filament that's in the tube. So you're pushing on one end of the filament, and it's going through the tube, going through the hot end, and coming out at the nozzle. And when you feed in new filament, that filament acts basically as a spring, so it starts storing energy in it. And then when you get to the end of a layer, there's this temporary pause in its microseconds, maybe, of a pause to go up to the next layer. And if you aren't extruding, you're not feeding filament at that point, but there's still that energy stored in the spring of the filament, and so it oozes that little bit. So what coasting does is, if you can get the right amount of tuning done, you can eliminate those blobs. So like, where's it at? Like this guy with the Z seam over here that you can see. I don't know. It's tiny on my screen, so I can't tell. But you can eliminate that a little bit by basically saying, all right, I'm getting close to the end of this layer. I'm going to stop extruding and let just the stored energy in the springiness of the filament ooze out and fill in the last little bit of the layer. And so you can get a better or a less noticeable Z seam. Coasting is available in all your other slicers now also, so it's nothing unique to Simplify3D, but the idea is that you can, this one is showing a coast of 0.2 millimeters, so for the last 0.2 millimeters of a layer, it won't feed new filament, it'll use that pressure to fill in the gaps. So you can tune that on any of these and use it to reduce your Z seam. The vase mode has no Z seam, so if you're in vase mode, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you're doing most other prints which are not in vase mode, then you might experiment with this. What you'll notice is once you get the value too high, so you put 2 millimeters in there, you'll end up with, instead of bulges at the seam, you'll have gaps in your seam. where it just didn't have enough filament to ooze out and finish out the layer. So it's going to be fractions of a millimeter of coasting. That's what coasting does. Again, that's not specific to Simplify3D. I just saw it here and thought, oh, well, we'll talk about that. There's a wipe that's particular to when you're changing between one nozzle and the other nozzle. You have layer settings, what's your layer height, how many top and bottom layers. You have those particular to both extruders. These are, all this stuff at the time, when this was last updated was like, oh, wow, I can do these things that I can't do in other printers. This one, Simplify3D, was really good for the dual nozzle printers where you wanted to be able to control both nozzles independently or do something like this ooze shield, things like that that were particular to printing with two different nozzles. Most of your other slicers, the free slicers, can do that now. And this wasn't cheap. I wonder if I can find the price of it now. It says Simplify3D version 4.1 just released. That's not true. It was released years ago. Let's see. I don't see the buy now. All right. $150 to purchase it. I would not do that. I don't know that there's anything in here that is not available in one of the free slicers any longer. Now, if someday, if they actually release a version 5 with whole new features, then okay. But I don't think that there's anything in here that a normal user is going to run into that you couldn't just do in Prusa or Cura. Let's see. Support material. Got your temperature and your bed temperature. It does have the ability to control temperature by layer. So if you wanted to do that, but we saw that in Idea Maker. And Cura can do that with the Change at Z plugin. So it's a little bit, it's the same process, but it is a plugin that you kind of modify the G code after it's generated. This one and Idea Maker are doing things a little bit more directly, or maybe it's more integrated. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Same thing with cooling. You can control the cooling at different layers, which you can do in other ones. It might be a little more integrated into the workflow in this one and Idea Maker, but Idea Maker is also free. So I don't know if Idea Maker has a paid version or not. I've never paid for it. I think it just has a free version. Let me see if I can find out. Let's see, Raise 3D, Idea Maker, free download. There's their printers. Yeah, I think their software is completely free. It doesn't have any features that are locked. Looks like it's totally free. Yeah, and it works very similar to Simplify3D. In some of these tabs look very similar. You can add scripts for G-code scripts for start and end. Maybe you have a particular thing you want the retraction to do. Tool change, so you're switching between the two nozzles. Maybe you want to do a nozzle wipe between them or whatever. Or maybe it needs to actually go and grab a new tool. I don't have a printer that does that. There is one out there that I can think of that does an actual go and grab a new tool and do it. So if you're doing some really unique stuff like that, then okay, Simplify3D might be the more direct way to go about using something where you're really doing some custom stuff. I'm going to assume that most people aren't doing that though. The speeds, I always get confused because the speeds are in millimeters per minute. So they look huge, like 2,700, but it's millimeters per minute. Here's some bridge settings. So almost all of the stuff that at one time was, oh wow, you can't change that setting in Cura. Now that's not true. I would think maybe the most valuable thing are these different scripts that you can add in on certain events. You can do that in even Cura, um, but I just don't know that the Simplified 3D software is going to have any value, so $150 worth of value for most users. But I wanted you to see it so you can see if you hear of it and, oh, you got to use Simplify 3D. This is what you get. You get something that looks a lot like Idea Maker. Um, it has very few features that are unique to it any longer. At one time, that was not true, but currently, there's mostly um, mostly other free slicers will do 90 something percent of what Simplify 3D will do. Um, it is not up to date on adding new printers, so you have to go and find if someone has written a printer profile for Simplify 3D versus Simplify 3D just having the printer profile for newer printers built into it. I really think that the thing that you would want to use Simplify 3D is you are trying to do some custom machine work and you need to have a lot of control over how this G code is generated, then maybe it becomes valuable at that point. But the other free slicers have really caught up and in some cases even surpassed it. You know, you can go in. I was looking the other day at the Prusa, the newest one, maybe even the beta release. It may not be the latest stable release, but you can paint on where you want the Z seam to be. So you have a lot of control over that sort of thing. Whereas, 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't true. So this is what Simplify 3D looks like. You will still see people saying that, yeah, you need to have this, but I'm going to say that you probably only need to have it if you need a lot of control over particular, layer by layer control of your printing. If you don't need that, then I think you're fine with Prusa and Cura and Idea Maker. I would say if you want to see mostly what Simplify 3D can do, then use Idea Maker, which is free for a while, and see if that workflow works for what you want to do. And then maybe it makes sense to use Simplify 3D. It's just that it's not free. So it does have a 2-week free trial, I believe. I remember that. Try it full for a full 2 weeks. But I think you have to buy it, try it, and return it. I don't think they give you a 2-week demo. I think you have to actually buy it, and then you can return it for 2 weeks, which is not the same. I don't like those kind of processes. If they want to give you a demo, just give you the demo. But they don't really want to do that. They want to sell the software. So that's that. I think tomorrow we will look at a multi-material thing. I still haven't made a lot of progress with the chocolate printer. Actually, I've made pretty much zero progress with it. I guess I'm just maybe a little intimidated by what all you have to do. You have to load the chocolate a certain way into these little syringe things, and I don't know. Maybe I need to bring it up here, and we'll just work through it one day. We've only got tomorrow, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We only have like 4 left, 3 or 4 left. I don't know if we have one for that Thursday or not. Next Thursday, well, a week from tomorrow. So we're getting close to the end on this little wrap up. I'll do this again in the winter. I don't know if it will be online though. That might be in person. But next summer we'll do another one and kind of update what's out there a year from now. All right, I will see y'all tomorrow with some multi-material printing, maybe a few more vases of some sort. I'm running out of ideas and materials that are unique now. This kind of just different colors. So I'll see if I can find a couple more unique materials to print in. I do have some really unique ones, some polycarbonate. Those are things you can't print on the Ender 3 without a lot of modifications. But I can probably print them on this printer over here. Maybe we'll look at that printer. It's kind of big. Maybe I can wheel it around here and we can look at it because it's an enclosed printer and it's not crazy expensive. It's the, I don't know how you say it, QIDI. So I don't know if that's kitty or cutie or some other pronunciation, but QIDI, carbon fiber pro something. I don't remember the letters. But it's only in the $1,800 range. So, and it's a really good printer. I've been getting some great carbon fiber nylon prints off of it, um, which is a hard material to print, nylon. But it's been working really well, and so it could print the polycarbonates and things like that. So I might run some of that through it to print a polycarbonate vase and an acrylic vase. You can actually print PMMA or acrylic, um, and so that's those materials are difficult for. They need to be enclosed, ventilated even on some of those. Or the PMMA, you usually want to ventilate that, and so that might be a good printer to look at because it is. If you're interested in, I really want to print stuff more seriously, that printer might be the best one in the FDM market. That's not ridiculously expensive. In the $60,000 range or the $20,000 range. It's $1,800. You can get it off of Amazon, and it works so far really well. So I've only been using it for maybe a month, and it's been really good. So we'll look at it tomorrow also because it's right over there. So we can figure out how to get it over here to look at it. All right, we'll be back tomorrow.